everyone. Good morning and welcome to our invited guests, Mr. Mayor, distinguished guests and members of our community, and welcome to our memorial service and awards day ceremony. At this time, I'd like to introduce Father Petrucci, our department chaplain, to give the benediction.
Heavenly Father, it is well that we gather here this day in prayer and in memory of those who have served so well. I am reminded of the story of a veteran of World War I, upon returning home, walking down the street and encountering a friend. The friend greeted him and noticed the soldier's empty sleeve. And he said, "I see you lost your arm." The soldier replied, "I didn't lose it. I gave it." It is that sentiment that draws us here today, in memory and prayer and honor of those who have given, those who have served, those who have provided for all of us so much that we can never be thankful enough for. And so, Father, we ask that your love and your protection and your care and your life may be with them that we honor today. And we ask you to watch over us and be with us and all of our loved ones. And we ask this on this very special day, always in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Father. We'll now have our National Memorial Service reading by Sergeant John Krapinski.
Good morning. 2007 was a sad and joyous year for us. Sad in the fact that we lost so many officers, their families were there. Joyous on the occasion that this was the first time that the widows from Connecticut went to Washington, D.C. without having to spend their own money. It was very nice to see them down there and their families. They could not have been more appreciative to members of the Danbury Police Department, Danbury FOP, the unions, and people throughout the state that helped with their families. In speaking with some of the families down there this year, I'm reminded that we always think about the dangerous assignments, the armed robberies, the MV stops, but sometimes it can be something just as simple as working a road job. Danny Paglia this year, our New Haven PD, was killed while working a road job, trying to make a better life for his family, which was down there in Washington, D.C. And speaking with his family, it really brings it home that every job that we do, no matter how minor it seems that it may be, is dangerous every day when we go to work. Lastly, speaking with Stacy Fumiati, at Danny Paglia's funeral, myself, Officer Ethan Mabel, we spent probably a good hour with Rob. We asked you to remember Rob, as those who know, Rob was shot in the face several years back, and this year to succumb to his injuries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Krapinski.
Tail, out, and hook. Guy. Out! Out! Tail! Face and out! Honor guard. Hey, oi, hey. Ready! Fire! Go! Ready! Fire! Go! Ready! Fire! Ready! Fire! Freeze and go! Honor guard, forward, roll. Detail, ready, go. Detail. All out. Assemble in the PAO building.
Portion of our ceremony. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Master of Ceremonies for this event, Deputy Chief Terrence Shanahan.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the 2007 Danbury Police Department Awards ceremonies. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to recognize a few people who pulled off this event. It takes a lot of coordination, doing scheduling of the officers, facilities, food, the awards. A lot of work goes into it behind the scenes. Lieutenant Sean McColgan, commander of our ceremonial unit, put an awful lot of time and effort into this, and I'd like you to please recognize his efforts. Standing in the very back is our host, Sergeant Bob Guerrera, Director of PAL. To my right, Executive Secretary to the Chief, Misty Leonard, who did all the typing. She has carpal tunnel now, but we're going to deal with that later. She did a heck of a job putting this together. Thank you, Misty. And as always, thanks to the fine officers of our Honor Guard. Great job out there. Thank you very much. Jim Fisher and his troops. Without further ado, the Mayor of our city, the Honorable Mark Boughton.
Thank you, Chief. It's my pleasure to be here this morning with you, and it's certainly an honor to participate in a ceremony where we recognize so many outstanding officers and their hard work for the city of Danbury. Before I have a few quick remarks, I just want to take a moment to recognize the elected officials that are with us here today. With us today are our town clerk, Lori Kabak, Common Councilman Tom Sadi and Common Councilman Ben Chianese, so let's give them a round of applause to welcome them here. The Danbury Police Department is going through a lot of changes, and those changes do not happen without your support and your help. And so from a personal level, I want to thank you for working closely with the chief and the deputy chief and your command staff to move the department forward. Everything from new vehicles to a new building are currently in the works, and a new organizational structure. And all those changes took place over the last couple of years, and without your support and your hard work and keeping all the good policing going at the same time, we certainly wouldn't be the department we are today. We wouldn't have the future that we have going forward. Obviously, I want to thank and congratulate all of the awardees today for their bravery, for their hard work, for their courage, and their compassion. And I have to tell you, when I'm out in the public, more and more I get positive comments about the great work that the Danbury Police Department is doing. And when you look at our statistics and our numbers, you'll see that everything from enforcement actions to arrests are up, and also the helping hand that you provide each and every day to the residents of the city. It is greatly appreciated from my office all the way down to our elected officials. We thank you and salute you for your hard work. I want to thank the Danbury Police Union as well, led by Mike Farrell, for their hard work over the last year or so, and I want to thank Dan Sellner's here as well, and I want to thank him for all the work that he's done in terms of leading the union and for putting events like today together, which are critically important. And just a quick second, I want to thank the awards committee for their work in recognizing each of the officers and civilians that we're going to recognize today. So it's a great day in the city of Danbury. I'm proud to be affiliated with the best police department in the state of Connecticut. Encourage you to keep up the great work, and thank you for all that you do. God bless you, and God bless America.
Now we'll have a few words from the leader of our great department, Chief Alan Baker.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out. Mayor Boughton, elected officials, members of our Common Council, distinguished guests, and my fellow Danbury police officers. Thanks for coming out on this very special occasion today. Today is a bittersweet day for the Danbury Police Department. First and most important, we gather this morning to honor the memory and the sacrifice of those Danbury police officers who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to the city of Danbury and to their fellow citizens. They are Police Officer Florence Sullivan, date of death September 8, 1896. Police Officer Robert Keating, date of death October 16, 1955. Police Officer Stephen Michalko, date of death November 11, 1976. And Captain Dennis Cooney, date of death September 12, 1994. Although these brave officers have physically left us, their spirit of service did not. That spirit continues in all of us today, and it still provides a compass for us. And I see that spirit of service just about every day. I see that when somebody calls us when they've been shot or been assaulted. I see it when we intervene in a domestic dispute, when we protect property, when we direct traffic, or even when we provide that word of friendship or that word of reassurance, or sometimes just by our mere presence in the community. And why do we remember today? William Gladstone said, "Show me the manner in which a nation or a community cares for its dead. I will measure exactly the sympathies of its people, their respect for the laws of the land, and their loyalty to high ideals." But today is also a day of recognition, honor, and celebration. You're going to hear some pretty amazing stories about Danbury police officers and citizens over the past year. For it's their hard work and devotion of all Danbury police officers that creates that thin blue line in our society, that thin imaginary line between law and order and anarchy. To realize just how important that thin blue line is, just look back to New Orleans back in August of 2005 when that thin blue line disappeared. So I just want to congratulate and thank all the honorees and your families for your sacrifices to make this town better for all of us. I want to thank Mayor Boughton and our elected officials for recognizing the important contributions and sacrifices police officers make by honoring us with your presence this morning. And I want to thank you, Danbury police officers, for all you do every day. Thank you.
Berta's ready. Okay, how's this going to work? I'm going to call out the names of the officers for each individual case. Officers, if you would please come form up right over here by Lieutenant McColgan on my left. I will read the citation, come across the stage, receive your award from the chief, the mayor. Okay. Please, folks, please hold your applause until all names have been read. And we will start off. Case number 064024, which was a home invasion that occurred in the city of Danbury on April 22nd, 2006. Officers Bonnie Henry, Special Officer Craig Simone, Sergeant Michael Sturdivant, Officer Thomas Stretchenmeyer, Officer Javier Lowe, Officer Robert Morlock, Officer Manuel Martinez, Officer John Flanagan, Officer Joseph Pooler. Please come forward. On April 26th, these officers responded to a report of a home invasion where shots had been fired. Two armed men had come inside a house and attempted to restrain the homeowner. In the ensuing fight, homeowner fired 3 shots from his own gun, possibly injuring one of the suspects. At the same time, these suspects were at the video store, which was owned by this victim, trying to get more information to complete this robbery. Sergeant David Cooney had this owner close his store, post Officer Flanagan there to protect the scene until more information was gained. Officers Lowe, Stretchenmeyer, Martinez were able to disseminate a good description of one of the men who was believed to be on foot in the area. Officers Henry and Morlock went to the area and began looking for the suspect. Animal Control Officer SPO Simone also came to assist. He radioed to Officer Henry that a taxi cab was driving around the area, could possibly be carrying the suspect. After some surveillance and some excellent investigative skills, they determined that the passenger was indeed the suspect in the robbery. At the same time, an officer approached Officer Morlock and told him that this same suspect had just attempted to steal his car. Officer Lowe established a good rapport with the suspect and then obtained a full confession. These officers, with their combined work, diligent efforts, contributed to the arrest of a man wanted for several felonies. Teamwork and coordination of the officers involved tied together 4 separate scenes, numerous witnesses, over the span of about 2 hours of investigative work. Very difficult case, under difficult conditions. They did an outstanding job. Before that, Special Officer Craig Simone is awarded the meritorious citation. Sergeant Sturdivant, Officer Stretchenmeyer, Officer Pooler are awarded letters of commendation for their efforts in this case. Case number 064049. An armed suspect was apprehended in downtown Danbury. Officer Scott Clark, please come forward. April 23rd, 2006. Officer Clark was approached by 3 males who told him that a man was beating up a woman in a parking lot at 301 Main Street. They tried to intervene and were threatened by the male who pulled a gun from his vehicle. Officer Clark went to investigate. Officer Clark observed a couple in the middle of the parking lot and could tell something was wrong based on his years of experience and his police officer intuition. He ran toward the couple, told the male he wanted to speak with him. At this time, the male ran away. He ran around some parked cars, crowded parking lot, pulled a silver-colored revolver from his pants pocket. Officer Clark continued after him while this man was in possession of the gun. The man attempted to ditch the gun under a parked car, at which time Officer Clark grabbed him. This arrest was due to the instinctive and quick reactions of Officer Clark. This incident could very well have ended in a shooting or even death of innocent civilians or fellow officers if not for the brave actions of Officer Clark. And for his actions in this case, he is awarded the Department's Medal of Bravery. Officer Clark. Case number 064610. This is a carjacking, 2 robberies, probably one of the most extensive and difficult cases members of our patrol division have ever had to face. A lot of officers participated, so bear with me, please. I read their names for this piece of police work here. Officer Peter Elstey, Walter Chapman, Greg Topa, Sergeant David Cooney, Lieutenant Sean McColgan, Officer Charles Emick, Officer Isaiah Pitts, Officer Rob Medor, Sergeant Roy DeRocco, Officer Scott Clark, Officers Tim Strano, Roger Hancock, Jose Augusto, Dominic LeBron, Sergeant Martin Labreco, Officer Joseph Pooler, Officer Gary Bardelli, Officer James Marino, Officer James Antonelli, Detective Sergeant Mark Williams, Detective Robert Yukaki. Those present, please come forward. On May 8, 2006, shortly after midnight, Danbury Police Department received a complaint of a robbery at the Mobile gas station, Main Street. Officers responded and were on scene within a minute from receiving the call. They learned that the suspect attempted to rob the Mobile gas station and fled empty-handed, but went into a car that was gassing at the pump. That car was occupied by 2 young children whose mom had just gone into the gas station. They were on their way from Massachusetts on vacation. The suspect, crack addicted, out of his mind, jumped into the car and took off. Officer information was given out to dispatch, who had all available units begin searching for this area. Officer Charles Emick spotted the suspect vehicle heading westbound on I-84. Officer Topa posted himself there and witnessed the suspect come off the exit ramp. The pursuit was on. Officers tried several times to box in this vehicle. Officer Pitts, driving his patrol vehicle, tried to corner the suspect vehicle, but the suspect went around him and then struck the rear door of a vehicle driven by Officer Topa. Lieutenant McColgan, the shift commander, had responded to the scene to take charge. He then tried to box in the suspect vehicle. The suspect went through a chain gate, evaded action, and went back onto the highway. Highway speeds up to over 100 miles an hour is frightening for anyone. But when you know there are 2 innocent little children in the back seat of this vehicle, driven by this man who's clearly out of his mind, it brings a heightened sense of urgency and determination on the part of all these officers. They stayed with the vehicle at these speeds, at their own peril, for over 10 miles, back and forth throughout the city, trying to rein this vehicle in. Finally, the suspect's vehicle crashed. Operator fled on foot, leaving the 2 children belted in the back seat. While some officers rendered assistance to the children, Officers Elstey and Chapman went looking for the suspect, along with several other of these officers. Officers Elstey and Chapman located the suspect about a half an hour later, hiding behind a shed in a nearby yard, and after a violent struggle, he was finally subdued and taken into custody. Several of the officers were exposed to the suspect's blood, had to go to the hospital to be evaluated and cleaned up after this case. Through a tremendous team effort, potentially grave tragedy was prevented. A dangerous felon who was on an active crime spree, this particular individual had committed several robberies in the days previous to this incident, was arrested. 2 children, ages 1.5 and 4.5, were saved from harm and reunited with their obviously frantic mothers. It was absolutely tremendous effort, probably one of the greatest cases you'll ever see, and officers will come across, and they're all to be commended. Tremendous job. We'll start with Officer Peter Elstey, a meritorious citation and a unit citation. Lieutenant Sean McColgan, Exceptional Police Service Award, unit citation. Officer Charles Emick, Exceptional Police Service Award and unit citation. Officer Isaiah Pitts, Exceptional Police Service Award and unit citation. Officer Robert Medore, Exceptional Police Service Award and unit citation. Officer Scott Clark, Exceptional Police Service Award and unit citation. Officer Dominic LeBron, unit citation. Officer Joseph Pooler, unit citation. Finally, Officer James Antonelli and his partner, K-9 Britta, unit citation. Case number 06609, suicidal male holding an 8-inch butcher knife. Sergeant Vincent LaJoy, Sergeant John Krapinski, Officer Joseph Pooler, Officer Rich DeJesus. Please come forward. On the 29th of June, 2006, officers responded to a call that a male was going to kill himself. As the officers do, they responded with caution, concern, responded to the location, set up a perimeter, and found that the individual was sitting on his living room couch holding an 8-inch butcher knife to his chest. Sergeant LaJoy began negotiations while Officer Pooler provided cover. Sergeant Krapinski arrived to assist. It determined that negotiations would continue as long as necessary to provide a peaceful resolution and to help this man. Sergeant Krapinski negotiated with the individual for approximately 15 minutes until the man stopped talking. He began to push the knife into his chest, causing a rush of blood. Taking immediate action to save the man's life, prevent a suicide, Sergeant Krapinski deployed his taser, which did not cause the man to drop the knife. Officer Pooler then deployed his taser, this time successfully causing the knife to fall. The man was taken into custody, transported to Danbury Hospital for necessary treatment, care, and observation. Were it not for the actions of these officers, this man would have taken his own life. And for that, Sergeant Vincent LaJoy, Medal of Meritorious Service. Sergeant John Krapinski, Medal of Meritorious Service. Officer Joseph Pooler, the Medal of Meritorious Service. We come to our first of two civilian awards today. Joan and Constanti, would you please come forward? Any of you that have had the fortune to know Ron and Constanti know that he is one officer you do not want on your bad side if you do a bad thing, because he will find you. My 20 years, Ron's long been known here as the guy that has got the bloodhound instinct and will stay on a case, stay on a case, stay on a case. Well, now we find out that apparently his wife shares some of those traits. Joan was on a vacation flight on July 31st, 2006, New York to Minneapolis. While on that flight, a young Egyptian male sat next to her, engaged in conversation, and he said a few things that kind of raised her, let's say, police wife suspicions. Didn't quite sound right. She would later describe how this man made her feel uncomfortable, some of which she attributed to her post-911 gut feelings. After her trip, she returned to Danbury. Her co-workers told her about missing Egyptian students that were all over CNN and other headline news organizations at that time. These missing Egyptian students were being sought by federal authorities as persons of interest. Joan contacted Sergeant Matt McNally, the Homeland Security officer, told him of her experience. He provided her with digital images of the missing students, and while she reviewed them, she was able to positively identify one of the photos as the man who was seated next to her on the flight. The Joint Terrorism Task Force was contacted, and using the information provided by Mrs. Joan Constanti, that information was used to help round up all 11 students. Her initial suspicions and her actions taken afterwards best illustrate the community awareness that law enforcement seeks from those we police in helping us to secure our nation in this post-9/11 era. With this in mind, and to illustrate her example, it is with great pleasure the Danbury Police Department conveys this civilian award to Joan Constanti. Well done, Joan. Case number 068079, Officer Kevin Zalowski. Officer Zalowski is a member of the Community Conditions Unit. And on August 2nd, 2006, he was conducting proactive patrol in the area of Beaver Street. At about 7:30 that night, he stopped a black Mazda for failing to stop at a posted stop sign. Officer Zalowski made contact with the operator. He noticed that the operator was attempting to conceal something along the left side of the driver's seat. He asked for the usual information, license, registration, insurance card, but was very mindful of the operator's actions. The operator tried to explain that he did not have a license, but provided him with the other requested paperwork. Officer Zalowski had the suspect exit the vehicle, in which time he observed in plain sight 2 small yellow Ziploc bags, each containing greenish plant-like substance. He recognized the bags to be consistent with packaged marijuana. He had Officer Carocho, his backup officer, place the operator in handcuffs as he continued to investigate. The operator was placed under arrest, and searched incident to arrest. Contained within his pockets was almost $2,400 in cash, seized as suspected proceeds from drug sales. A large amount of cocaine was found to be in the vehicle, excess of 2.1 ounces of uncut cocaine. Officer Zalowski's proactive motor vehicle enforcement, outstanding situational awareness, and the fact that a large quantity of narcotics was removed from the street, his actions have earned him the Exceptional Police Service Award. Time for our second civilian award. Chris Pacheco is coming forward. We are honored to have Mr. Pacheco here with us today, as he exemplifies the best of what Danbury has to offer in its citizens. On August 8th of 2006, 12:30 in the afternoon, Officers Connors and Sergeant Brunelli were sent to AWD at 307 White Street for a motor vehicle accident with injuries. Happened in a parking lot. They were met there by Chris Pacheco, Pacheco stated that Mr. Ramsdorf got out of his truck and left it in reverse accidentally. The truck ran over Mr. Ramsdorf and continued in reverse in a circular motion. Mr. Pacheco ran out of the trailer he was working in, jumped into the moving vehicle at great risk injury to himself, and applied the brake, stopping the truck. There is a strong possibility that if Mr. Pacheco had not jeopardized his own safety in stopping the truck would have probably run over Mr. Ramsdorf a second time, as it was on that path. We're honored to have Mr. Ramsdorf here as well today. Mr. Ramsdorf, thank you for being here today. Honor Mr. Pacheco. As a direct result of the actions of Christopher Pacheco, the truck was stopped, preventing Mr. Ramsdorf's further injuries, and he is hereby awarded the Civilian Award for his heroic actions that day. Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Case number 068741, the arrest of an armed felon, Officer Daniel Sellner, Officer Dominic LeBron, come forward. Shortly after 11 p.m. on October 14th, 2006, Danbury police officers responded to a call of shots fired on Scopo Road. Turns out a shotgun round was fired through a door towards the intended victim. The suspect was known to be a dangerous felon, a suspect in several other violent crimes, a member of the Latin Kings. The information had been that he'd recently sold automatic weapons to undercover officers. This department also held an active arrest warrant for this party. Patrol Division, assisted by Detective Ikaki, Detectives Luis Ramos and Mark Drahalis, investigated, dug further, later learned that the suspect may be driving a red Lincoln Navigator with New York plates. The location where he stayed and frequented was put out to all officers and may still possibly be armed. Patrol units received this information, roll call the following day. Within minutes of receiving that information, Officer Sellner spotted the vehicle matching that description on North Street. The passenger was purposely concealing his face. Officer Sellner called in the vehicle while he continued to follow it. Several other units began responding to the area. Officer Sellner initiated a felony stop and was immediately backed up by Officer LeBron. The passenger was subsequently taken into custody for said shooting and on the warrant. Officer Sellner made good tactical decisions during the investigation. He did not allow the suspect vehicle to get close to the residence, preventing other family members from interfering with the stop. He waited until he had sufficient backup before ordering the suspect out of the vehicle, ensuring that there was an overwhelming police presence to deter any further violence. Officer Sellner took the initiative, stopped a known violent felon in a tactical and professional manner, and removed a dangerous individual from the streets of Danbury. His backup officer, Officer LeBron, is noted with a letter of commendation. Officer Sellner, the meritorious citation. Case number 068858, a home invasion on Eden Drive. Officers Don Hassick, Jose Augusto, Andre Havasi. Let's come forward. August 20th, 2006. Just before 5 a.m., just think what kind of shape you're in before 5 a.m. These guys are out there responding to a home invasion complaint. Burger on Eden Drive. Field Training Officer Hassick had Officer Andre Havasi riding with him. Officer Augusto had Officer Rink riding with him. Officers Hassick and Havasi arrived on the scene where they saw that the front window of the apartment had been broken and that there was blood smeared on it. The front door was locked. A female dropped the keys from the upstairs bedroom window, screaming that there was a man in her house. Officer Hassick You'll get your hat trick, 3 awards. Officer Hassick made entry with Officer Augusto and saw a male running up the stairs with something shiny in his hands. Officers Hassick, Havasi pursued him up the stairs to the 2nd floor. The suspect ran into a bedroom, shut the door behind him. Officer Hassick forced open the door to find the suspect standing there, armed with a knife. He refused to drop it. Officer Hassick utilized his taser. Suspect was able to remove 1 probe from his chest, but it made a connection with his foot. Leading that circuit, Sergeant Georgioulis, and was able to remove 1 probe from his chest, but it made a connection with his foot, causing him to fall on the floor, but still not releasing the knife. Officers Hassick and Havasi struggled with the suspect to get the knife away, while Officer Augusto attempted to pull him into the hallway. Officer Hassick utilized the drive-stun feature of his taser. Suspect continued to resist arrest until the officers were able to finally take him into custody and disarm him of the knife. These officers worked quickly and diligently in apprehending a dangerous felon. Officer Hassick's presence of mind in utilizing the taser helped to save the lives of not only the 5 occupants of the home and the officers on scene, but also the life of the suspect himself, who was brandishing a deadly weapon which he refused to release. What's not noted there is that this particular suspect had already committed violent crimes against this woman in this house. We believe he was hell-bent on getting in there to finish the job. It's a great job. Officer Hassick, Medal of Meritorious Service. Officer Andre Havasi, Medal of Meritorious Service. Case number 06920, homicide in Danbury. Sergeant Michael Georgioulis, Officer Mark Sciaccosa, Officer Dominic LeBron, Officer Roger Hancock, Officer Ronna Constanti, Officer Tracy Frinton, Officer Jose Augusto, Officer David Williams, Officer Joseph Riolo, Officer Brian Reed, Officer Adam Lawler, Officer Gary Coe, Officer Linda Lorenko, Special Officer Charles Farrar. Those present, please come forward. Shortly before 5 p.m., August 24th, officers were assigned to 6 Broad Street on a report of a disturbance. While they were en route, further information became available that this was possibly a homicide. Upon arrival, officers learned that there were 2 separate buildings on the property that serve as actual living quarters, forcing them to determine the exact building where the incident was occurring. Sergeant Mike Georgioulis arrived on scene, took command of the situation. Officer Sciaccosa was already on foot, covering the front side of the property. Special Officers Farrar and Officers Riolo and Augusto were also on scene. A female holding a small child was observed near the driveway. She was visibly upset, looking back and forth between the rear building and one of the patrol vehicles. Sergeant Georgioulis motioned and called out to the female to come towards him, where she and the child were taken from the area by Special Officer Farrar. Another female was seen near the building, and she was taken back to a safe position. They gathered information that a female had been stabbed to death and that the male suspect was armed and still inside the residence. Sergeant Georgioulis requested a response from the SWAT team and crisis negotiators. All available patrol units were requested to respond to the scene. A rescue plan was discussed involving the deployment of distraction devices. Prior to the activation, the exact location of the victim was verified. Rescue plan was implemented, and the body of the lifeless victim was removed from the scene, where medical treatment was administered in vain. Sergeant Georgioulis observed hands waving from the window of a storm door. He gave verbal commands for the person to exit the residence. A male exited, and team members were able to take him into custody. The house was checked and cleared, no one else inside. These officers here worked together in removing potential victims to safety, gathered needed intelligence, and protected neighboring residents from harm. They provided these actions while remaining calm, while under great pressure and duress, and in the face of unknown peril at this homicide scene. Sergeant Mike Georgioulis, meritorious citation. Officer David Williams, unit citation. Officer Dominic LeBron, unit citation. Officer Ronald Constantine, unit citation. Officer Linda Marenko, unit citation. Case number 0611064, the sexual assault of a juvenile, the truly dark side of our job. These officers did a tremendous job in preserving this victim. Detective Gary Girton, Officer David Antomenico, Officer Dominic LeBron, Officer Travis Kupchak. On the 11th of October, 2006, Officer Travis Kupchak, responded to a juvenile complaint. Parents didn't speak English very well, and the daughter was initially uncooperative. Officer Kupchak persisted, requesting assistance from Officer LeBron, who began to interview the parents, translating what was going on. They were able to determine that some type of sexual incident involving the daughter had taken place. They were unsure exactly what was going on. Sergeant John Krapinski arrived, interviewed the daughter. She advised that her father had been inappropriately touching her for some time now. And for you children in the room, I'll try to keep this clean. Detective Girton from the Youth Bureau arrived on scene with Officer Antomenico, evidence technician, who was able to collect sufficient evidence to be used for prosecution. With Officer LeBron translating, Detective Girton was able to get a confession from the father. He advised Detective Girton that he'd been having relations with his daughter, now 14, for some time, and had in fact had attacked her that morning. Based on the persistence of Officers Kupchak, LeBron, and Antomenico, and Detective Girton, they were able to place the father under arrest. It is not that they were able to make an excellent felony arrest that is the most important aspect of this case, but the protection and relief of a 14-year-old girl that was subject to a sexual assault on an almost daily basis by her own father. Detective Girton, Officer David Antomenico, meritorious citation. Officer Dominic LeBron, getting tired of seeing him up here, meritorious citation. We noted Officer Travis Kupchak, at the time of this case, was just barely off his field training program, and we're real proud of him. He's doing a great job. We're our brand new guys, and he's making us all proud. Meritorious citation. Officer, I think it's easy reading all this stuff. Bear with me. I used to laugh at the guy that used to do this, and now look at me. All right. Case number 06-11814. Burglary arrest, downtown Danbury. Sergeant John Krapinski, Sergeant Scott Favich, Officer Gary Bardelli, Officer Mike Peterson, Officer Kenneth Utter, Officer Kevin Zalowski. Please come forward as we're present. For several weeks in the fall of 2006, the city of Danbury was experiencing a rash of nighttime commercial burglaries throughout the city. On this evening, officers in the Community Conditions Unit, along with the 4 to 12 shift, worked together to try to locate the suspects. At 10:30 that night, Deep's Restaurant, 49 North Street, had its burglary alarm activated. Upon arrival, it was found that someone had pried open the rear kitchen door, entered the premises. It appeared that the suspect had made entry, smashed open the cash register, and fled. Officers flooded the area. Officer Ken Utter and Sergeant Scott Favich were checking businesses on North Main Street. At about 11:30, while approaching Gulliver's Liquor Store, they heard the audible alarm coming from the area. They observed a male run from around the building and into a parking lot. Based on the male's proximity to the alarm and the fact that he was running away from the scene, they believed that he may have just committed a crime. They attempted to stop the suspect, but the male continued to flee. Chased him on foot. Officer Zalowski joined the search, observing a male riding a bicycle past him. Clothing description matched that of the suspect, so he attempted to stop the male, who disobeyed his commands and fled on the bike. Officer Peterson and Sergeant Kopinski arrived on scene, assisted in the search. Officer Peterson located the bicycle that the suspect was operating, but the suspect was gone. Officers Zalowski, Peterson, Sergeant Kopinski then began the search area when they discovered the suspect hiding underneath a parked car. Officer Bardelli responded, processed the scene. Check of the liquor store's CCTV revealed the entire incident, clearly showing the suspect smashing the window, prying open the cash register, removing money, smashing a lottery machine on his way out. Based on the professionalism of all involved officers and their unyielding dedication to the residents and business owners of Danbury, a convicted felon with a history of drug possession and larcenies was caught in the act and charged with this burglary. For that, they received a unit citation. Sergeant John Kopinski, Sergeant Scott Favich, Officer Kevin Zalowski, Officer Mike Peterson. Case number 06-12023, a violent assault downtown on the night of November 23rd. Officer Dave Williams, Officer Charles Emick, Officer Linda Lorenko, please come forward. Shortly after 1 a.m., Officers Williams, Lorenko, Emick responded to a report of a disturbance near the ice arena on DeLay Street. As they approached, they located a man bleeding heavily from a 16 to 20-inch razor slash around his neck. Officer Williams secured a first aid kit from the parking garage, cleared the wound, and applied pressure. Officers Emick and Lorenko assisted. When the first ambulance arrived, Officer Williams drove the ambulance to the hospital at the EMT's request so both EMTs could work on this seriously injured victim. Officer Williams, disregard to his own well-being, also got the victim's blood on him. While securing the scene, maintaining crowd control, and gathering witnesses to this violent assault, Officer Emick located an uncooperative victim in the crowd. This man was suffering from a razor slash to his left arm, a large slash over his left eye, and was bleeding heavily from the back of his head. Officers Emick and Lorenko attended to this victim, waited for the second ambulance. After speaking to the emergency room physician who treated the first victim, he noted that Officer Williams' actions saved the gentleman's life. Officer Williams' actions, display of care for another life, and professionalism in handling this case in this chaotic scene are exceptional. Officers Emick and Lorenko acted in a thorough, professional, and efficient fashion, safeguarding the scene, getting to the bottom of this chaotic disturbance in downtown. For that, Officer David Williams is awarded the department's life-saving award. Officer Charles Emick, Exceptional Police Service Award. Officer Linda Lorenko, Exceptional Police Service Award. Say about police officers taking care of one another. I happen to casually mention it, and it arrives. You guys are good. Case number 0612597. I like this case because it involves our special officers who don't get the recognition they deserve. Special Officer Al Lorenco, Officer Dom Spaziani, please come forward. Our special officers work in a part-time capacity, basically a volunteer capacity. They sure don't do it for the money, but these two guys have been with us for a long time, and they do a great job coming in, working the streets like the regular officers do on our Friday and Saturday nights when we need the extra help on the road. November 16th, 2006, Special Officers Lorenco and Spaziani were a two-man unit patrolling the downtown area. They were waved down by a vehicle. The frantic male operating the vehicle was screaming that his 16-month-old daughter was inside the vehicle. She was not breathing. They opened the rear door of the police vehicle and got the gentleman to get his daughter, and they brought her to the police car. They radioed headquarters, notified dispatch of the situation. Officer Lorenco stated that as the situation was unfolding, this was the quickest method to get help for the child. Special Officer Spaziani remained with the man's wife and two other children and drove them to the emergency room. Additional units were sent to stop traffic at the major intersections leading to the emergency room in order to get the child there quickly. While traveling there, the child began to breathe on her own. The child was immediately assisted by medical personnel upon arrival at the hospital. The actions of Special Officers Lorenco and Spaziani resulted in quick professional medical care for a child who was not breathing upon their involvement with the situation. The officers took quick, decisive action during a highly stressful situation, resulting in the expedited medical care of a 16-month-old girl while providing comfort and compassion to her family. In doing so, they brought great credit to our department. The Exceptional Police Service Award is awarded to Special Officer Albert Lorenco and Special Officer Dominic Spaziani. Case number 0613455, one of those other kind of cases where you had to be there to believe it. Officer Jim Antonelli, Officer Greg Topa, Officer Mark Wojcik, Officer Andrew Corrado, please come forward. Let's get our present. Early morning hours of December 9th, 2006. Temperature is about 12 degrees outside. The man calls headquarters, tells them that he sees a guy walking along the edge of the road, enter the wooded area off Willow Road, South King Street. He came out a few seconds later, then laid down, began talking on a cell phone. Then he got back up, walked on the street, saw a car go by, and ran into the woods, and did not emerge. Knowing the cold temperatures, the inappropriate dress of the male, the officers diligently began searching the area. It was believed that the male was probably intoxicated. The area he walked into was wooded for a large number of acres. Officer Antonelli and his canine Britta, along with Officer Topa, arrived and began searching for the party. Officers Wojcik, Antonelli, and canine Britta shortly located the male lying on the ground approximately 200 feet into the woods. He had no shoes on, was wearing a short-sleeved shirt. He was fast asleep in this 12-degree weather. When he was awoken, he was shivering and talking incoherently. An ambulance was summoned to the scene. It was ascertained that this male was in fact intoxicated and lived directly across the street. If the complainant did not call us, see the man walking, he surely would have died. If the officers did not respond and act as diligently as they did, who knows what the outcome would have been. Their efficient actions brought credit to themselves, the Danbury Police Department, and their profession. For that, Officer James Antonelli and Canine Britta, Officer Mark Wojcik are awarded the Exceptional Police Service Award. Case number 07511 involved the takedown of an armed individual on White Street. Sergeant Vince LaJoy, Officer Mike Peterson, Officer Mike Iaquinto, Officer Tim Strano, Officer Dave Williams. Please come forward. In the early morning hours of January 14th, 2007, the officers responded to a report of a large fight at the Elks Club on West Street. Information received that the suspect involved in this altercation was in fact in possession of a handgun, had a disagreement with the person, and had made threats that he was going to shoot his intended victim. The officers checked several locations, including the Three Brothers Diner, where they in fact located the suspect's vehicle. Sergeant Vincent LaJoy was a field supervisor and established a perimeter around the diner. He and Officer Mike Peterson were at the front of the restaurant when the suspect suddenly exited the restaurant. As they attempted to stop him, he attempted to run. Sergeant LaJoy was able to tackle the suspect, who was combative, and repeatedly attempted to reach into his waistband. Officer Peterson and LaJoy were able to hold on to him while he was violently struggling with them until Officers Iaquinto and Williams and Tim Strano arrived to assist. The suspect repeatedly exclaimed that he had a gun, and he continued to attempt to reach into his waistband area. Throughout the experience, he was actively fighting with the officers. Officer Iaquinto was able to reach into the waistband of the male while he was being restrained and pulled out a loaded 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers were finally able to secure him. The actions of these officers removed a dangerous felon from the streets of Danbury and may have saved an innocent person from being shot. All officers used the greatest restraint and demonstrated the best of our department when they used hands-on tactics to subdue an armed suspect. Sergeant Vincent LaJoy, the Medal of Bravery, Unit Citation. Officer Mike Peterson, Medal of Bravery, Unit Citation. Officer Dave Williams, Unit Citation. Officer Mike Iaquinto, who's also one of our newer guys, making us proud, doing a great job out there, is ordered the Unit Citation. Case number 07613, involved a pursuit and an arrest of a drug suspect, Officer Justin Williams. Come forward. Officer Williams was on proactive patrol in the High Ridge Gardens housing complex. Properties under renovation, posted no trespassing. Early morning hours, he goes to check on a suspect vehicle that's parked up there. While approaching the vehicle, the suspect accelerated towards him and attempted to ram Officer Williams' cruiser. Officer Williams was able to take evasive action and continue after the suspect. His observation of the operator's driving led him to believe that the operator was intoxicated. Officer Williams continued to pursue the vehicle until the suspect suddenly braked, causing Officer Williams to swerve to the left of the suspect. The suspect once again tried to ram Officer Williams. The pursuit went into New York State, with several Danbury officers trying to catch up. Officer Williams did an outstanding job on the radio, keeping everyone updated with his location. He was able to apprehend the suspect with the use of his taser while pursuing him on foot in the state of New York. During the pursuit, the suspect was attempting to discard numerous packets of cocaine. The pursuit and the capture was carried out entirely by Officer Williams, and he was able to apprehend a violent fleeing felon, resulting in an arrest on 13 different charges. For his efforts, Officer Justin Williams is awarded the meritorious citation. Case number 072164 involves the recovery of 2 firearms and the arrest of several suspects. Officer Don Hassick, Officer Pete Elsty, Officer Jim Antonelli, Officer Mark Wojcik, Officer Travis Kupchak, Officer Phil Savone, and Officer Andrew Corrado. Come forward. Early morning hours of February 23rd, 2007, these officers were working a holdover detail in the I Street area due to some ongoing problems there. To help deter these problems, all officers were proactive, keeping a check on the activity. Officer Hassick observed a black Nissan Maxima that was registered out of Stratford. He is familiar with this vehicle because it was involved in an altercation downtown, or check that, at Denny's the previous Friday. Officer Hassick communicated this with Officer Elsty. The vehicle is now in the Main Street area. Officer Elsty spotted the vehicle as it made an illegal left turn. He initiated a motor vehicle stop and radioed that there were 4 occupants in this vehicle. He was backed up by Officers Hassick, Wojcik, Corrado, and Kupchak. Officer Hassick observed in plain view on the passenger side floor a bottle of liquor and cigar shavings. He knew that the cigar shavings were indicative of drug use. He alerted Officer Elsty, and all occupants were removed and patted down for safety. Officer Antonelli was requested to come to the scene with his K-9 Brita, who positively alerted to the trunk of the area, establishing enough probable cause to further search the vehicle. Upon checking the trunk, a handgun was visible, found to be a fully loaded revolver. Further search revealed a second fully loaded revolver hidden in the spare tire compartment in the trunk. Both guns were seized. 4 occupants were placed under arrest. It was learned that one of the guns was reported stolen out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. All parties arrested had numerous arrests and convictions for weapons crimes, drug crimes, and assaults down in Lower Fairfield County. Due to the keen observations and quick actions taken by Officers Hassick and Elsty, 2 stolen firearms were recovered, 5 dangerous individuals were arrested. All officers involved in this case demonstrated the high standards of the Danbury Police Department. Officers Hassick and Elsty are awarded the meritorious citation. Officers Antonelli, K-9 Brita, Officer Wojcik, Officer Kupchak are awarded letters of commendation for their efforts in this case. Case number 072823, suicidal male holding a 10-inch knife. Sergeant Mike Sturdivant, Officer Dave Melendez, Officer Rob Morlock, Officer Rob Perrin. I believe only Sergeant Sturdivant can make it today in this group. On March 8th, 2007, Sergeant Sturdivant, Officers Perrin arrived at a call. A man was alleged to be suicidal. He was in fact holding a 10-inch knife to his neck, threatening to kill himself. He was standing at the top of a stairwell and appeared to be intoxicated. Sergeant Sturdivant had the officer secure a perimeter while he began negotiating with the male. Due to the position of the male in relation to the stairwell, a taser could not be utilized. Sergeant Sturdivant calmly talked to the male. The male became more agitated, told the officers to leave. The male then appeared ready to harm himself while stating that the only way that Sergeant Sturdivant could help him would be to shoot him. The male also pointed the knife at Sergeant Sturdivant, and all the while, Sergeant Sturdivant maintained a calm demeanor, requesting that the male drop the knife and that he wanted to get appropriate help for him. After a length of time and solid negotiations, the male finally dropped the knife in the direction of Sergeant Sturdivant and was placed into protective custody and transported to Danbury Hospital for treatment. Sergeant Sturdivant was able to calmly reason with an emotionally disturbed person under the influence of alcohol and drugs who was armed with a weapon. All officers involved played a great role in helping to secure this individual and get him the help that he needs. Their actions were conducted calmly and professionally while under extremely stressful conditions. Sergeant Mike Sturdivant is awarded the Exceptional Police Service Award. Next are our Safe Driver Awards. So those that are present, Sergeant Chris Carocchio, Sergeant Dave Cooney, Sergeant Roy DeRocco, Sergeant Al Matty, I believe they're all here, Officer Gary Coe, Officer John Flanagan, Officer Rob Medora, Officer Dave Melendez, Officer Rob Morlock, Officer Mike Peterson, Officer Tom Stretchenmeyer. Those present, please come forward. Now, some of you may cynically think, well, what's the big deal? 4 years without an accident? Well, if you see the number of accident reports we get, you realize it's a pretty big deal to go 4 years without not just causing one, but being hit by some knucklehead out there on the street. And that's for you, Mark. Knucklehead, that's the word. Remember that word? Yeah. Okay. Safe Driver Award is awarded to police officers and sergeants assigned to the Uniform Patrol Division and Traffic Investigations Unit. It's given to any officer or sergeant who has completed 4 years of service in the Uniform Patrols Division and who during that successive period of time has not been involved in any motor vehicle accidents. In order to qualify for this award, the officer in question must have spent at least 75% of his or her working shifts assigned to motor or traffic patrol operating a vehicle. You know how our traffic is? The radio going, the cell phones ringing, which we're not supposed to have, but it's a lifeline for the guys talking to dispatch, and we are exempt by state statute. They do a great job keeping the car safe and appreciate it. Officers Medora, Stretchenmeyer, and Peterson, the Safe Driving Award. Now we come to our final two awards, the Chief's Achievement Awards, which are given to our police officers of the year, both the Rotary and the Exchange Club. First up will be Officer David Antodomenico. Officer David Antodomenico is the Danbury Exchange Club Officer of the Year for 2007. He exemplifies the spirit of traditional community service. This is most evident in his more than 10 years of continuous service as an associate advisor to the Danbury Police Department's Law Enforcement Explorer program. He has also worked as a school resource officer at Danbury High. Not only has he spent time working with the young teens and adults through a myriad of issues, but has taken on many roles and duties within the post and running various programs. Officer Antodomenico's continuous commitment to both the Danbury Police Department and the Law Enforcement Explorer program have demonstrated his tremendous amount of service and dedication to the youth of the Danbury community. Officer Dave Antodomenico. Chief's Achievement Award for the Danbury Rotary Club, Officer Mike Peterson. Officer Mike Peterson is the Danbury Rotary Club's Sunrise Officer of the Year for 2007. November of 2006, Officer Peterson investigated a suspicious fire at Immaculate High School. After interviewing the cleaning crew working at the time, as well as their children who were also present, he determined that one of the children had set the fire. He continued speaking with the family, ultimately garnering a confession to not only that incident, but also another recent incident similar in nature. It is instances like this that demonstrate Officer Peterson's ability to gain rapport with citizens in the community while still displaying empathy and understanding in order to win the confidence and trust of the citizens he works to protect. Officer Peterson has been very active in the development and implementation of several mandatory classes for the personnel at the Danbury Police Department, including creating lesson plans and teaching classes within the department. Some of these include OSHA's required hazmat bloodborne pathogens, weapons of mass destruction, personal protective equipment, and national incident management systems. Officer Peterson is highly motivated and a great asset to the Danbury Police Department. Officer Mike Peterson. And we'll circle around, Mike. Finally, our last Chief's Achievement Awards, Lieutenant Matt McNally, Sergeant Mike Georgioulis, Officer Adam Marcus, and Officer Mike Peterson. Well, I just spent enough time talking about Mike Peterson. You guys got the gist of that, right? He's getting another Chief's Achievement Award. Let me tell you about Mike Georgioulis. Mike Georgioulis has unselfishly spent countless hours coordinating and running numerous training programs, seminars throughout the last couple of years. He's overseen the patrol rifle program at the Danbury Police Department. He was initially involved with the certification of a good portion of our personnel a few years back and has since run a biannual program every year in order to keep officers certified in the use of the M16. Additionally, Sergeant Georgioulis has taken on the task of TASER coordinator for our department. He is responsible for bringing a comprehensive training program to our members and for the acquiring of many TASERs for their use in the field. Our officers have and will benefit from Sergeant Georgioulis' work by being injured less while in the performance of their duties with a combative or suicidal person. Sergeant Georgioulis has devoted many hours of time in attending classes, researching, and preparing lessons for the training that he has done. Much of this training has been done at his own expense. The feedback has been strictly positive regarding the most recent TASER training that he's completed for this department. Officer Peterson, for his work, personal protective equipment, the hazmat, they have completed training for all 150 members of our department, getting them ready for the worst-case scenario, should that day ever come. These officers have contributed greatly to the Danbury Police Department's training program. These officers are great assets to our department. For that, Sergeant Mike Georgioulis, Officer Mike Peterson received the Chief's Achievement Award. Okay. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring our event to a close. We'll tell you that the Danbury Police Union, Local 891, Mike Farrell and the guys, generously providing lunch for all attendees here, and that'll be right back through the other side of the curtain. I want to thank you again for attending, showing your support to our officers. It's been a rough couple of years. So we go through some changes and some growing pains, but let it not be said that the diligence and the efforts of the officers are not there. They continue to work hard each and every day. I'm proud to know each and every one of you. I'm proud to be a member of this department. And I want to give you guys a round of applause for the great work you do every day, day in, day out, 24 hours a day. Thank you.